Around 30,000 people moved to New Hampshire between 2020 and 2024, but almost none of them went to cities. So where could tens of thousands of people possibly be hiding right now? Today, I'm breaking down the backwards migration pattern reshaping New Hampshire real estate and what it means if you're thinking about making this move. The backwards pattern. So here's the thing. Carroll County just became the fastest growing county in New Hampshire. Not Hillsborough, not Rockingham. Carroll County, home of the Lakes region, where some towns have fewer people than a mid-sized apartment building in Boston. It's really the sticks out there, guys. That's the inversion. And honestly, the data just doesn't contradict what you'd expect. No, this is much more drastic. Traditional population growth follows pretty simple logic. People move towards cities, towards jobs, amenities, density. That's been the model in virtually every metro area in this country for the last 50 years. So when New Hampshire started tracking its post-pandemic numbers, what came back didn't fit any standard model. Manchester, the state's largest city, grew about 0.6% from 2020 to 2024. Nashua, the second largest city, is also about 0.6%. Modest, unremarkable. Durham actually lost population, down 1.4%. Berlin lost 1.8%. Keene was essentially flat across all 4 years. Now, while those established cities were barely moving, Carroll County posted up roughly a 5% growth from 2020 to 2024. Individual towns pushed even further. Brookfield grew about 9%. Tuftonboro had about a 6.6% growth. Moultonboro is about 6.2%. 10 out of 19 Carroll County towns grew at double the state rate. And when we get into the 5 forces driving this, you'll see exactly why it's not going anywhere. That's coming up in a few minutes. But back to the actual areas growing. So the places you'd expect people to want are very stagnant. The places most people had never heard of 5 years ago are absorbing all the demand. That's real. It's documented, and it raises the obvious question. Who are these people, and why are they choosing a town of 4,000 over Manchester? And the answer starts with one very specific state on the map. Now, if you're watching this and thinking about making a move to New Hampshire, I want you to know we've got you covered. I'm Adam Dow. I focus on the Lakes region and I run the Dow Group, the #1 team in New Hampshire. We have area experts across every region, so whoever you reach out to, you're getting somebody who knows that market inside and out. My contact information is in the description below, as well as a link to our website. Okay, back to the video. Who's moving and where are they coming from? So the IRS tracks state-to-state migration through tax filing data. And for the 2020 to 2021 migration, the numbers are pretty clear. More than 12,000 tax filing returns moved from Massachusetts to New Hampshire. The flow going in the other direction was less than half of that. So if you're wondering where Lakes Region's buyers are coming from, there's your answer. After Massachusetts, the next biggest sources were Florida, Maine, New York, Vermont, California, and Connecticut. But the Massachusetts connection is the one worth sitting with because it tells you something specific about who's making this move. These aren't people chasing distressed prices. These are households with real options. They're choosing New Hampshire on purpose. So what does that buyer actually look like? Retirees are a big piece of this. New Hampshire keeps coming up as a serious option for people setting up their next chapter. 4 seasons, great outdoor recreation, and a tax structure that looks really different from Massachusetts once you stop working. Remote workers are the second major group. The Census Bureau tracked the national shift in working from home, and the numbers are striking. The share of U.S. workers working from home jumped from 5.7% in 2019 to 17.9% in 2021. That's not a small move, that's a structural change. New Hampshire's own labor market data explicitly ties that telework shift to a stronger in-migration. People who wanted to be here 5 years ago couldn't make the logistics work. Post-pandemic, that changed permanently. The third group is vacation homeowners who just flipped the switch. Families who already had a camp on the lake or a cabin in the mountains spent extended time here and decided it made more sense to make it permanent. And one detail worth knowing, the Lakes region sits roughly an hour from Manchester and roughly 2 hours from Boston. Close enough for occasional office days, far enough for a completely different life. Now, all three groups share the same profile. The buyers looking for waterfront access, mountain proximity, space, and a lifestyle that urban density just can't give them. When that demand concentrated into towns with a fixed amount of shoreline and limited housing, you already know what happened to prices. The 5 forces making this structural, not seasonal, not temporary, are what we need to get into next. Why is this happening? 5 drivers all working together. This is where the pattern stops looking like a weird blip and starts looking pretty inevitable. Remote work flexibility is the foundation. Hybrid schedules makes a 1 to 2 hour distance from Boston totally manageable. Fully remote eliminates the commute equation entirely. New Hampshire's labor market data says explicitly that teleworking gave us a lasting boost in migration that isn't unwinding. The Lakes region distance that used to be a deal breaker is now a selling point. The tax picture is the second driver, and here's where I always put everything on the table because the full picture matters. Massachusetts taxes wage income at 5%, with an additional 4% surtax on very high earners. New Hampshire has no income tax, no sales tax. The interest and dividends tax was repealed effective January 1st, 2025. The annual savings can be substantial and it compounds year over year. But here's the thing, New Hampshire's trade-off is property taxes, and they vary a lot, even within the same region. New Hampshire's Meredith 2025 rate is $10.62 per thousand. Moultonborough's is $5.33 per thousand, where Tuftonboro sits at $7.62 per thousand. Same Lakes region, very different monthly costs, depending on exactly where you land. This is one of the first things I walk every buyer through because it changes the total cost picture significantly. Quality of life is the third driver. The Lakes region sits at the center of 273 bodies of water, with Lake Winnipesaukee anchoring more than 200 miles of shoreline and year-round recreation infrastructure already in place. The White Mountains add a whole second dimension, skiing, hiking, and a 4-season access to terrain that most of the country has to fly to reach. For the people moving here, that's a Tuesday afternoon after work. Natural amenity scarcity is the fourth driver. You can't manufacture more shoreline. You can't zone in a mountain view. The geographic limits on supply in these towns are permanent, not cyclical. When demand concentrates into a finite number of premium locations, the price floor doesn't drift. It consolidates. The housing cost equation is the fifth piece. Not that the Lakes region is cheap, because it's not, but what the same budget buys in the Boston suburbs compared to what it buys on a Lakes region property are genuinely different in terms of space, lifestyle, and daily experience. That's the value arbitrage driving this. And underneath all 5 of those drivers sits one supply constraint that doesn't get talked about enough. New Hampshire is running an estimated 30,000 home deficit just to meet existing demand. This is not happening everywhere. I can tell you that for free. Before COVID, we averaged around 5,000 homes on the market statewide. During the pandemic, we dropped under 1,000. We're running around 2,000 right now. That's the inventory reality buyers are stepping into, and it sets up exactly what the market actually looks like on the ground. What this means for buyers. So what does a 30,000 home deficit look like at street level? Statewide, New Hampshire homes were selling around a median of 483,000 as of January 2026. That's roughly 3 months of supply and about 35% of homes selling above list price. That's a constrained market, competitive pockets, and the Lakes region is one of those pockets. In Meredith, current pricing runs in the high 500s, and the market is running hot. Multiple offer situations on well-priced listings, with hot homes moving significantly faster than the average. Moultonborough is tracking in the 600s to low 700s, with homes averaging around 82 days on the market and selling close to list. Not every listing triggers a bidding war, but well-priced, well-located properties in geographically constrained towns compete hard when they hit. The White Mountains corridor is participating in the same shift, but unevenly, and that distinction matters if you're weighing these two regions. Conway grew about 4.9% from 2020 to 2024. Bartlett about 3.9%, Thornton about 5.1%, but Lincoln only grew 1.5% and Gorham slipped. Pricing in Conway spans are wide range, mid 400s on the low end by one measure, high 800s on the high end by another, driven by sharp variation in property type, neighborhood, and vacation home appeal. Mountain buyers need to look at the full range rather than anchoring to a single number. Let's get to the bottom line for any buyer watching this. The structural drivers aren't temporary conditions. The demand is documented. The housing stock isn't building its way out. And the towns showing the strongest growth are, by definition, the ones with the fewest properties left to absorb continued demand. I've also watched buyers wait for a correction that never came. If you're waiting for prices to drop before you move, you're battling against a market running a 30,000 home deficit with continued in-migration and no meaningful new supply coming online. That may not be the strategy that actually serves you. Now that said, and this is worth saying directly, New Hampshire is not for everybody. If a small town living feels like a compromise, if rural realities like winter, road conditions, well, or septic are genuinely deal breakers, this is going to be a hard adjustment. Honestly, it's just not for everybody. But the migration data shows that a very specific and a growing group of buyers has done that math and decided it works. And right now, getting ahead of that continued wave matters more than waiting to see what the next appreciation cycle looks like. The migration data is already documenting it, town by town, county by county, in numbers that don't leave much room for debate. So if you're thinking seriously about making this move, shoot me an email, adam@thedowgroup.com. I focus on the Lakes region personally, and the rest of my team covers the mountains and the coast. No matter where you're looking, we've got the right person to help you figure it out. And if you're wondering which New Hampshire properties are selling, I've linked a video right here that breaks down the numbers using actual months of inventory and days on market data by segment. If you're serious about this market, that's the video that tells you how to win once you get here. Well, that's all from me today. Thank you for watching. I hope you have a great one.